What if what you fear most is exactly what can set you free? Sometimes something inside us whispers. A whisper so soft, yet so persistent, that ignoring it seems harder than hearing it. And yet, we pretend not to listen, because listening to what comes from within requires courage. And courage is rare. Have you ever felt like you act against your own will? As if your choices were pulled by invisible threads? As if a hidden force decided for you, and you just watched? There is something in us that never sleeps. An underground, intense, contained fire. And when we ignore it for too long, it doesn't fade, it transforms. That's where the conflict begins. The silent frustration. The feeling that there is something wrong, but that you don't know how to name. Like an impeccable house on the outside, but with creaking walls on the inside. A tension that tightens the chest. The same one that makes the sparkles in the eyes slowly disappear over the years. No, you're not broke. You're torn. This division has ancient roots, deeper than the soil we walk on. And perhaps the biggest responsible for this abyss is something that society hides, distorts, fears, desire. More specifically, the energy that is born from it. Carl Jung, a man who dared to look where others turned their faces, called this force libido, not as a merely sexual impulse, but as the essence of life. The spark that moves creativity, connection, the search for meaning. Desire is only one of its faces. And when that energy is denied, it doesn't go away. She hides. It goes to a dark place within us. A place that Jung called a shadow. But the shadow is not evil. The shadow is what was not accepted. It is what you have repressed, hidden, buried alive. It is the silent cry that shapes your decisions, your relationships, your fears. How many times have you felt something you couldn't explain? An impulse, an obsession, a sadness that seemed to have no reason. How many times have you repeated painful patterns, sabotaged yourself when it came to living something true? This is not weakness. It's the shadow talking. It is the forgotten libido asking to be heard. You can even try to tame it with morality, discipline, reason. You can call it an error, a sin, a shame. But it is there. It always has been. Waiting. And what does not become conscious, as Jung said, becomes destiny. Joao also thought he had control. He grew up hearing that desire was danger, that feeling too much was failure. He became an exemplary, admired, stable professional. But inside him, there was something that didn't sleep. A silent desire, disguised as indifference. And then one day, she appeared. That woman who carried, without knowing it, everything he denied in herself. Spontaneity, freedom, intensity. It wasn't love. It was projection. He saw in her what he had exiled within himself. And the more he tried to control himself, the more he lost control. Do you understand that? Sometimes we don't love the other. We love what we see in him. The part we are missing. The part we bury to be accepted. When you deny your life energy, it does not turn into virtue. She hides. And it manifests itself in distorted forms. Jealousy, anxiety, excessive ambition, apathy, pride, compulsion. As if your soul screams for something you don't allow yourself to feel. And then you run. He runs after achievements, bodies, goals. But the emptiness continues. Because what is missing is not outside. It's inside. Jung saw this in the eyes of his patients. Intelligent, successful people, but lost. Not in the world, but within oneself. They were looking for God, philosophy, purpose, and they forgot to seek themselves. They did not know that the key was in the desire that they tried so hard to ignore. The truth is that no one escapes this. All of us, at some point, have to look within, face what we have left aside, and ask honestly, what am I trying to hide from myself? Desire is not the enemy. It's a compass. It is seed. It can be destruction, yes, but it can also be creation. It depends on how you look at it. It depends on whether you hug him or combat. Transformation begins when you stop deceiving yourself. When he recognizes that it is not a matter of living without desire, but of living with it. With awareness. With integrity. What are you afraid of? Of being rejected? Of being judged? Or to discover that your entire life has been shaped to please others and not you? True freedom is not in doing everything you want. It is in knowing why he wants what he wants. It is in recognizing the voice that you have been trying to silence for so long. Yes, it's scary. Looking at yourself is always a risk. But it is the only real way. The rest, it is disguise. And if you've made it this far, you've already taken the first step. The most difficult step, to start seeing. Maybe now you notice patterns. Maybe he remembers moments when he betrayed himself to fit in. Maybe you realize that that person you idealized so much, it was just a mirror. And that's okay. Because only what is seen can be transformed. Only that which is accepted can be healed. The shadow is not a monster. It's a piece of you that just wants to go home. You weren't born to hide from yourself. There's a part of you that you tried to bury. He buried it with silence, with routine, with obligations. He buried it pretending it didn't matter. But she still breathes. He still dreams. It still cries inside when you smile outside. It is not easy to admit this. That deep down, you feel that something is missing. Even if you have a good job. Even if he is surrounded by people. Even if the world says you won. But what did he win if he lost himself? We live in a culture that rewards control. Self-control, emotional control, control of the body, of the image, of the narrative. But those who control too much, it's hiding too much. Jung knew this. He saw the human soul as a battleground between what we are and what we try to look like. Between instinct and mask. And one of the most repressed forces in this conflict is desire, the one that pulsates in silence, that burns for no reason, that bothers even when ignored. The repression of desire does not kill him. Increases your power. It goes into the dark, into the territory of the shadow, and there it grows unsupervised. And then he disguises himself. Of anxiety, of compulsion, of anger, of sadness, of pride. How many people do you know who seem to always be at war with something they don't know how to name? How many times have you felt a weight in your chest yourself and not known where it was coming from? This weight has a name. It is the price of not being whole. And there is a very high cost for living with only half of yourself. Society teaches us to fear desire. He says that he is dangerous, that he corrupts, that he deviates. But is the problem in the desire, or in the fear we have of his strength? Jung believed that this energy was like a river. You can build dikes, try to contain him, but he will find a way. It can be through art, through passion, through creation, or through destruction. The path he chooses depends on how you treat him. Repressing this force is like trying to put out the sun with your hands. In the end, you just darken yourself. Desire is not the enemy. The enemy is the fear of feeling it. And this fear makes us live halfway, creating edited versions of ourselves. It makes us pretend we don't want what we want. It makes us look for validation in others, because we have lost the internal compass. But there is a moment, and perhaps this is yours, when the soul screams, in which the mask no longer supports the weight, in which the mirror refuses to lie. It is at this moment that the healing begins. When you decide to stop running away from yourself. When you choose to sit with your shadow, listen to what it has to say, even if it hurts. Because yes, it will hurt. Truth always hurts before liberating. Joao, that same man caught between desire and repression, had to fall. He had to see his projection crumble. He had to understand that it was not she, the idealized woman, he loved. It was what she represented. The part of him that he abandoned. What about you? What have you loved about others that is actually a reflection of what you lack in yourself? Maybe you're falling in love with your own lost freedom. For the lightness that he does not allow himself to have. For the spontaneity he swallowed to fit the molds. When you understand this, you begin to see the world with different eyes. He begins to see his patterns. Your repeated choices. Their relationships that start the same and end the same way. And that, as painful as it may seem, is liberating. Because only those who see the prison can build the key. The energy you have repressed is not a curse. It is raw material. It's power. It can become art, presence, true intimacy. It can be used to build bridges instead of walls. But for that, it needs to be integrated. To integrate is not to give in. It is to recognize. It is to look at the desire and say, I see you. I hear you. And now I choose what to do with you. That is the real power. It is not a matter of living moved by impulses, nor of killing them. It is about walking alongside them, to be greater than the force that inhabits it, not by denying it, but by understanding it. You don't have to run anymore, nor to hide, nor project, nor idealize. You just need to look, with honesty, with humility, and with a real desire to be whole. There's a life waiting for you, a life with more presence, more truth, more connection. But it demands something in return, that you stop lying to yourself. Are you willing? Because the journey doesn't start when you understand it. It starts when you decide to stop running away. Maybe now you start to remember. Of the moments when I said yes, when I wanted to say no. Of the times he hid behind smiles. Of the passions he was ashamed to feel. Of the desires he buried at night and cried in silence. All of this is coming back. Not to punish you, but to be seen. To be taken care of. You are not weak for feeling. You are brave to keep going even with so much inside you unresolved. But the time has come. You can keep pretending that everything is fine, or it can finally open the door. And if you open up, you may find that there are no monsters waiting, but pieces of you. Wounded, yes, but ready to go home. And in this reunion, something awakens. Something old, forgotten, essential. Something that has always been there, waiting for you. What you don't see inside yourself will end up becoming what he fears most out there. There is a truth that no one likes to admit. The problem was never the world. It was always you. Not the essential you, but what you built to survive. The domesticated, educated, adjusted version, the one who smiles while dying a little inside. From an early age we learn to be silent, suffocating, to hide everything that is too big, too intense, too true. We started wearing masks. Some so well made that we even forget that we are wearing them. And one day we wake up strangers in our own skin. We wake up tired without understanding why. Surrounded by choices that don't seem ours. Warm relationships, empty routines, goals that no longer warm the heart. And we call it life. But it's not life. It's survival. And the price of this survival is high. You exchange your essence for belonging. It exchanges truth for acceptance. It trades desire for security. And in return, gains a void that does not stop growing. Do you remember when you stopped listening to yourself? When did you decide that it was safer to please than to be sincere? That it was easier to adjust than to take risks? At some point, we all made this silent pact. The pact to abandon what pulsates inside to fit into what they hope for outside. But there is a problem with this pact. It charges interest. And this interest comes in the form of anguish, insomnia, anxiety, distancing from oneself. Carl Jung said, "What you resist persists." And that which you try most to suppress, desire, shadow, instinct, becomes your master. Not because it is too strong, but because you have consigned it to oblivion. And everything that is forgotten gains power in the dark. You can pretend to control everything. He can follow all the rules, he can be exemplary, rational, balanced. But deep down, you know there's a voice inside you. One that still screams, even muffled. One who asks every day, is that it? Is that all? And you try to silence that question with distractions, with promises, with purchases, with series, with people who don't touch your heart. But she comes back. It always comes back. Because the soul is not satisfied with little. She wants it all. He wants wholeness. He wants truth. He wants fire. And this fire you have denied. Denied in the name of prudence, of religion, from the image, the logic. But the fire was not meant to be locked up. It was made to illuminate, to burn what is false, to reveal what is real. You fear this fire because you think it will destroy you. But what if it is exactly what can save you? Save from numbness, of apathy, from automated life, of the eternal almost. Joao, the same one who projected his desires on the wrong woman, discovered this the hard way, losing everything he believed he was. But there, at the bottom of the well, he found something he never imagined, his own truth. And she realized that her pain did not come from desire, but from the denial of it. That the life he lived was not his own, but a well-rehearsed role. And that, in order to be born again, he would need to die. To die symbolically. Let go of the old self. This is the crossing. The point of no return. When you understand that your freedom doesn't depend on anyone, it depends on your choice to face yourself in full. But beware of the last trap. Once you start integrating your shadow, something subtle happens. A new ego is born. The enlightened ego. The spiritual persona. The one who says, now I understand everything. I'm above that. Desire doesn't touch me anymore. Make no mistake. This is also a disguise. Desire doesn't have to be denied, nor glorified. He needs to be honored. With humility. With awareness. No idolatry, no fear. You're not here to be perfect. It is here to be whole. And to be whole is to accept that within you there are lights and shadows. Fears and passions. Impulses and wisdom. And that all this deserves space. When you accept that, peace comes. Not the static peace of those who anesthetize themselves, but the living peace of those who know each other. And then, something changes. You stop chasing. Stop needing to prove, compete, convince. Because he knows who he is. Because it recognizes its flame. Because it no longer needs to be divided. Relationships change. The work changes. The look changes. You start to attract, not chase. It begins to build, not to repeat. He begins to truly love, not by neediness, but by presence. This is not magic. It's alchemy. The inner alchemy of transforming the lead of repression into the gold of consciousness. And that's where it all starts. Because now you know, the energy you once feared is your ally. And as you walk with it, you become what the world needs most. A living soul. A soul that feels. Who chooses. Who takes on his own fire and no longer needs to hide it. You didn't come into the world to please. It came to wake up. And awakening begins with a simple but powerful choice. To look within. And don't look away. Because when you look, really look, darkness bows. And what was once shadow, it becomes light. Not all you feel is confusion. Sometimes it's just truth trying to emerge. Have you ever noticed how silence sometimes weighs more than noise? How come there are nights when the world seems quiet, but inside you there's a storm, and you don't know if it's longing, fear, or just a calling? Something that vibrates in places you forgot existed. Maybe it's your soul trying to come back. The soul is not content with masks. She gets sick in soulless routines. It withers when you force it to fit into expectations that were never yours. She despairs when she realizes that you are moving away from yourself. And that's when life starts screaming. Not with words, but with symptoms. Insomnia, discouragement, irritation for no reason, stuck crying, anguish on clear days. It is not weakness. It is language. A code from the soul saying, "You have forgotten me." It is not about religion, doctrine, or philosophy. It is about completeness. That you have the courage to listen to what the world has taught you to ignore. Your desire. Your sadness. Its intensity. Your shadow. Carl Jung believed that everything we reject in ourselves does not disappear. It just hides. Go to the shade. And from there, it starts operating. It begins to shape our choices. It begins to sabotage our achievements. It begins to project itself into everything we touch. That's why you so often feel like you experience the same pain with different faces. Because it is not the other. It's you. It is his story that repeats itself until it is heard. You can call it bad luck, fate, karma. But, deep down, he knows that there is something that needs to be resolved. Something that cannot be solved outside. That requires a return to the beginning. To what you abandoned in the name of an acceptable life. But acceptable to whom? Who said that wishing is wrong? That feeling is weakness? What intensity is threat? They were old voices. Of parents, schools, religions, cultures. Voices that wanted security, order, predictability. But security is not life. Order is not soul. Predictability is not love. You have been tamed. And now you miss the wild in you. Not chaos, but of authenticity. He gives the courage to say what he feels. To do what you believe in. to love without having to hide. Maybe that's why, even surrounded, you feel lonely. Because no one can love your mask. They can only love what you are afraid to show. And as long as it doesn't show, love will always be insufficient. You're not broke. It is silenced. You're trapped in a character who seems safe, but who kills you slowly. And for that, he needs to die. Not really, but symbolically. You need to allow this controlled version of yourself to be left behind. And that hurts. It hurts to admit that you've lived so long in fear. That chose people out of need. Who remained in jobs by status. Who rejected opportunities because he didn't feel worthy. Who betrayed himself countless times so as not to bother. But this pain is sacred. She cleans it up. It sets the stage for something new. And this new begins with a gesture. To stop running away from yourself. Don't run away anymore. When you feel that desire that scares you, don't blame yourself. When you feel that anger you don't understand, don't repress it. When you feel like crying, don't get distracted. Embrace. What you feel is trying to heal you. What you repress is trying to save you. Don't fight your own truth. It may seem chaotic now, but that's exactly what makes it alive. You don't need to understand everything. You need to feel. He needs to allow himself to inhabit his entire body. Their memories, their desires, their emptiness. Because only then, with everything in you present, is it possible to truly live. And here comes the most important point. To truly live is not to live happily all the time. It is to live consciously. Feel everything. Learn from everything. Love even when it hurts. And keep going. Because to live consciously is to stop expecting perfection and start choosing presence. John learned this when he lost everything that sustained his image. When there was no way to pretend anymore. When his soul screamed louder than his pride. And there, at the bottom of the well, he found a seed. The seed of himself. It has always been there. But it needed the darkness to germinate. You also have this seed. Maybe you're feeling like your life is dark right now. Maybe you feel like you're lost, alone, without direction. But this darkness, it is fertile. It is in it that the roots of your truth are born. Don't run from it. Don't get distracted. Stay with you. With everything he feels. With everything you fear. With everything you want. Because only then can the new be born. You don't have to be perfect. You need to be honest. With their desires, their pains, their choices. Because healing doesn't come when you become someone else. It comes when you go back to who you were before you shut up. You didn't come into the world to fulfill roles. He came to live in a state of presence. To touch the other with his naked soul. To be a beacon in the middle of a sleeping world. And that starts now. With a simple act. A heartfelt whisper to himself. I'm coming back. Sometimes what is missing in your life, it's you. We live trying to fill voids with achievements. We buy, we win, we accumulate. We create goals like someone who builds walls, believing that at the end of everything, we will find peace. But peace is never at the top. It's inside. And the way to it is not to go up, it is to dive. Diving into yourself is a dangerous invitation. Because when you look within, you can find what you have avoided for years. The wounded child, the frustrated adult, the denied desire, the exhausted soul. But it can also find something that the world has tried to erase. Its essence. The world is afraid of whole people. They are not easily manipulated. They do not follow herds. They do not ask for permission to exist. A whole person bothers because it mirrors the half that others have ceased to be. That's why we've been trained to fragment. Fragmenting feelings, relationships, dreams. We learn to hide pain with smiles, desire with guilt, weakness with pride. But that comes at a price, living a life you don't feel. Have you ever wondered why, even when everything seems to be going well, there is a restlessness that does not go away? Have you noticed how some victories are accompanied by an uncomfortable silence? As if deep down something said, "Isn't that what you wanted?" Maybe it never was. Carl Jung reminded us that it is not possible to be complete without integrating what has been denied. That it is not a matter of killing what is instinctive, but of welcoming, understanding, dialoguing. The impulse you fear may be the same one that saves you. The desire you repress can be the bridge to creativity, to true love, to deep fulfillment. You don't have to fight against yourself anymore. He needs to relearn how to walk with his shadow, to recognize the signs of the body, the cries of the heart, the alerts of the soul. The soul always warns. She warns with tiredness, with panic attacks, with an emptiness that is not filled. And if you keep ignoring it, she stops whispering and starts screaming. And if she still doesn't listen, she begins to erase the colors of the world. That is why there are so many opaque eyes, so many bodies present in an absent soul. People who live but don't feel, who speak but do not listen to each other, who love but do not surrender. Don't be one of them anymore. You deserve to live with intensity, love without fear, create with truth, breathe with presence. But this requires a choice, to stop pretending, stop performing, stop hiding behind what is acceptable. Authenticity is an act of rebellion. In a world that profits from your insecurity, being you in your entirety is almost a revolutionary act. But it is not about rebelling against the world. It is about reconciling with oneself. To look at your forgotten parts and say, I'm not going to deny you anymore. To look in the mirror and see, finally, someone whole, even with flaws, even with fears. You don't have to heal everything right now. You don't need to understand everything today. You just need to take one step inward, closer to you. Maybe that means crying over an old pain, saying a no that he has always swallowed, writing a letter never sent, opening a book left for later, or just sit quietly and ask, who am I when no one is looking? This question is dangerous, but it is there that it all begins. You are not just what your networks show. It's not just what they expect from you. It's not just father, mother, son, professional, friend. You are mystery. It's pulse. It's fire and water at the same time. You are the space between what you feel and what you dare to live. And sometimes, it is enough to dare a little more. Dare to feel. Dare to allow yourself. Dare not to have all the answers. To dare simply to be present, imperfect, real. Joao discovered this when, without shields, he began to live differently. It has not changed the world. It changed the way he inhabited the world. He started to listen more and justify less, saying yes when he wanted and no when he needed to accept that his intensity was a gift, not a defect. And little by little, he became himself. Not what the others wanted, but what has always been there, waiting to flourish. What about you? Are you willing to really meet? Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't expect everything to make sense. Meaning reveals itself on the way, not before. Start with what you feel now. For the restlessness that brought him here. For the desire to live something that still has no name. This is already the beginning. That is already courage. And if at any time you doubt, remember, doubt is also part of it. The important thing is not to give up on yourself. Because, in the end, what you are looking for most, he has never been out. It was just hidden behind walls that you built yourself. Walls made of fear, shame, silence. But you can tear down those walls. With small gestures. With acts of presence. With choices that say, today, I come back to myself. And then life changes. Not because the world has changed, but because you are now whole to live it. And the world, faced with an entire soul, has no choice but to bow down.